Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am excited today because we have the magnificence, El Magnificence, should I say, Andrew Bryant, all the way from Portugal, who is welcoming us in his beautiful home. Look at this background we've got. The hair is just amazing. I love it. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Claire. It's good to see you.
Last time you and I met, we were in Dubai. It was just amazing.
It was good for me too.
It's one of those things as speaker, I found it quite incredible when we are in the middle of nowhere or in middle of a total incredible places and we meet up and suddenly it's like bang, it's like we've been friends forever and we've known each other. It creates such a relationship, that speaking industry, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I guess it's a matter of shared values and shared experience because, I mean, speakers are a bit of a strange animal since the majority of people do not enjoy or are abjectly fearful of public speaking. And yet we are the ones that embrace it. So I think we are a sort of a group of freaks and recognize each other when we meet.
I love that. So how did you start? What was that journey? When was that moment when you thought, oh yes, this is what I want to do?
Well, actually, it's very obvious to me. I remember the exact moment. Somebody had dragged me along to a multi-level marketing convention in the hope of persuading me to be a distributor. And they'd done a very good job of getting me there. Anyway, I reluctantly went. And this thing was, bigger than Ben-Hur. It was a rock concert, disco, it was huge. And I understood, the power of social influence. But most of it, of course, went through to the keeper. I'm like, yeah, this is not legit. But then they got this doctor from Melbourne. So this was in Australia. And this doctor from Melbourne came on. His name is Dr. John Tickell. And he'd written a book called Everything in Moderation Except Sex, Vegetables, and Fish, which is just a great title for a book. Brilliant. And he just drew this pipe from the top to the bottom, which is obviously the mouth to the other end, and talked about, what goes in and what happens and what comes out. And he made the complex simple. I actually had gone to medical school. I knew the physiology, the anatomy, but I was like, this guy had messaged it so powerfully. Wow. And I'm like, that's incredible. And, the little spark goes off in your head. I could do that. And so I was not interested in being a distributor of the multi-level marketing products. I was interested in being on that stage. Anyway, I bumped into John in the corridor and I said, well, it was great. He said, thank you very much. And I said, quick question. He said, yeah. I said, did they pay you for this? He said, oh, yes, very well. And I'm like, okay, I definitely want to do that. And that was the moment for me. I had a role model. I had somebody that I looked up to, I guess, yeah. and a sense of self-belief that yes, I could do that. And I think that's the initial spark for anybody on the journey. They go, I could do that. Now, the rest of the journey around, well, what does it take to do that? Then a lot of people fall by the wayside when they realize that it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, because I guess there's no school. I'm saying there's no school, but there's plenty of different institute or people who kind of, saying they can, they're teaching you. So there's different pattern, but there's a lot of pieces to be a keynote speaker, right?
Yes. So yeah, there are people who will, there are associations that have speaker academies. And there are people that will charge you to teach you to speak and promise that you will be a keynote speaker. What I think you mean is that there's no sort of laid out career path, right? So, right. If you're going to teach, if you go to a teacher, you go into a degree and then you do a teacher degree, a teacher diploma, and then you get hired as a teacher or, a dental assistant or a dentist. There is a set career path. As a keynote speaker, there are a number of parallel competencies that you are going to need to develop from your eloquence, how well you are on stage, your expertise, really honing in on what is the message that you share. But then the enterprise, the business of speaking. And there is a fourth E, which is ethics, which is not spoken about as much, but ethos, ethics, your character, how you behave, I actually think is very, very important to speakers. And as a president of a speaking association, I see that people miss the fact that speakers refer speakers. And if you don't behave in a way that others appreciate, they're never going to recommend you. So that's a piece that sometimes people miss.
That's true. And it's yeah, there are so many elements to it, and I think it takes, how long have you been speaking? Is it 25 years?
25 years.
25 years. Right.
Yeah.
So it takes, I think we learn every day. Do you still feel like you can learn?
Oh yeah, I'm always learning. Sometimes, of course, I'm learning what not to do when I see people online. And sometimes we relearn a lesson, right? Sometimes, you go, oh, I'm never going to do that again. And then you go and do it. Yes, look, I'm always modeling, what is the best. But I'm at a stage in my career where it's about letting things go. I mean, I think early as a speaker, you develop a lot of things and build a lot of building blocks. You go, okay, well, I've got to make my PowerPoints look like this, and I need a prop, and then I need a tagline, and then I needed this, and I needed this. And I think there's a cycle in mastery. Bruce Lee said, at the beginning of his training, a punch is just a punch. And at the end, when he reached mastery, a punch is just a punch. Now, that's awfully zen and awfully deep. But for me, it's about letting things go. I just wrote a speech that I'm going to deliver on the 18th of November in Barcelona, and it will have one slide. And that's it. And it's got no props. It's got nothing, no bells, no whistles. And I've stripped everything away, but a message that will speak to the heart of the audience. We will see if I've been successful, but you reach a level where you can let everything go. So you build it, you add everything on, and then you take everything off.
Wow, very powerful, very powerful. And so 18th of November, I'm guessing that's something to do with the PSA Spain?
Yeah, that's the PSA Spain convention. And as the president, of course, I get to do the opening speech. And this is my legacy, and so therefore, for me, it's an important speech to pass on to the next generation of leaders of that association. And this will be the kickoff for the association to come of age, as it were, to move from a club to an association. And I mentioned the E of expertise E of enterprise. As a speaker, and a lot of people come through Toastmasters, or they go, oh, I'm quite good at giving a speech, but the enterprise is, treating speaking as a business. One of our keynote speaker is a good friend of mine, David Averin, flying in from the United States. And David's keynote speech is, the speech is not the business. Getting the gig is the business. And I think that's segues, I think, to the topic that you would like us to talk about today, which is the topic of your podcast.
And so how do you actually, so this is it, how do you find your fields? Because you talk about leadership, you talk about, a lot, obviously business, but leadership, there's a lot of pieces to it as well. You can use that. How did you find your path? How did you get into that field?
Well, it actually happened so the area that I'm most known for is self-leadership, because I've written 3 books on that. And if you Google the definition of self-leadership, you're most likely to find a definition that I created in 2012 with Dr. Anna Kazan. But it was back in the 1990s when I first joined a Speakers Association. I was in Perth, Western Australia, and I joined the National Speakers Association of Australia, which is now PSA Australia, Professional Speakers Association Australia. And I went along to a few of the meetings, and they gave me a chance to speak, gave me some fairly strong feedback, which was very interesting. And I had a coffee with a guy afterwards, which is what happens in these associations. And he was a psychologist, and he's saying, so what do you really speak about? And I said, well, look, I don't really believe you can lead anybody else unless you first lead yourself, and that you need your self-awareness and you need to develop yourself. And he said, oh, you mean self-leadership? And I went, That's it. Self-leadership. That's exactly what and at that moment, I thought we had invented the term. So I started talking about self-leadership in the late 1990s. But when I started to dig deeper, I discovered somebody in 1987, a guy called Charles Muntz, had written a book on self-leadership. So it took me a while to go, okay, this is my topic, but what is my unique contribution to this topic? So a lot of people go, well, I want to talk about this, but somebody else talks about this. I want to talk about customer service, right? But Ron Kaufman is the customer service guru, or Bob Huey is the customer service guru. Well, and again, I've just named two huge people, but they've carved out their interpretation of the topic. So I went really deep into self-leadership. I basically did my PhD putting it into the book. I co-authored it with a PhD. So we did the research. And so I know that topic, 6 foot long, but 60 foot deep. And so if somebody wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, talk about self-leadership, I can do it. So that's what you've got to find your particular take on a topic, and more importantly, how that topic adds value.
Right.
I can speak to that, but I'll pause for a second.
Yeah, no, it was leading to actually what I was going to ask you about, that value. How do you demonstrate the value of your keynote to a booker? That's really, because you've got, you believe that you've got it, but how do you demonstrate that?
Well, that is the $64,000 question, and a lot of speakers, really suffer with that. If you pick a topic like sales, and you say, okay, I'm going to do a speech, or I'm going to do a training for your team, and your sales are going to increase 3 to 5% over the next 6 months, you have a tangible return on investment. If you take, there are speakers who go, well, I want to talk about mindfulness, or I want to talk happiness in the workplace. Those are a lot more difficult to quantify in any type of, you can get a qualitative kind of assessment, but it's very difficult to make the case. I owned a fitness center chain at one time in Australia, and I missed the point. I had a background in physiotherapy. I hired graduates from human movement schools, and we built this holistic wellness center. This cost me a fortune because I made the mistake that I didn't really understand what the problem we were solving. I thought we were solving the problem of osteoporosis in old, as you get older, or obesity or diabetes. I thought that was the problem we were solving. Do you know what the problem is you solve if you own a fitness center?
You make people feel less healthy or more healthy.
People want to feel good naked.
Right.
If you boil it down, right, we all have to take our clothes off in front of somebody at some point, right? And how do we feel about ourselves when we do that, right? So a lot of people join a gym and they extensively say it's to get fit, but they actually want to meet somebody. They want to feel better about themselves. And, when do we notice that we're not happy about ourselves? When we stand naked on the scales. And if you boil it down to that, now, unfortunately, I'd already lost a huge amount of money before I discovered that was the secret. But it's tangible. People want to feel good naked. Okay. Or feel less ashamed. Right. So, and that drives them. Now, my topic, self-leadership, is a bit like a gym membership. Everybody knows self-leadership is important. Everybody knows leadership is important, right? So I crossed two, a huge cabin, leadership's huge. And everybody says, yes, leadership is important. What they don't realize is that it's their leadership that's important. They think everybody else needs to develop their leadership, but theirs is fine. So I have a particularly tricky problem of identifying for people that here's what you're not doing. So I learned from a fellow speaker, Steve Lowell, who's a previous president of the Global Speakers Federation. He's a speaker in Canada, and he has a great message that you have to have a model that people can see themselves where they are in the model. Now, the fitness example is when you stand on the scale, you get some feedback where you are on the model from X number of kilos to X number of kilos. You get immediate feedback. You know where you're at. Now, when somebody goes through your keynote, and let's say you're speaking about mindfulness, do they instantly know that they have achieved some level of nirvana, or that they are stressed out and likely to be a fatality in the next 6 to 12 months? Where are they on the scale? Now, I developed a scale for self-leadership and how it impacts leadership of organizations. So as the audience goes through my keynote or a workshop, they instantly know, oh, that's what we're doing wrong. And that's what it's costing us. In fact, when I have a slightly longer keynote, I was in Helsinki, Finland early this year. And the organizer said, look, Finnish people do not interact with the speaker, but we want them to interact. Could you break your speech so that we did a table discussion and then a feedback, so then they can speak in Finnish, and then we can feedback the answers to you? I said, absolutely. So I took a 50-minute keynote and we turned it into an hour and a half. So I laid out what the challenges are for leadership. We paused, they had a discussion, and the question on the table is, what is your current behavior costing you?
Wow.
And so they fed back to me, well, actually, it's costing us in terms of turnover and engagement and empowerment and creativity and innovation. So therefore, we had the cost. And they told me, Sales 101, get the customer to tell you what their pain is. Then I said, okay, great. So it's costing you. So if you did this, this, and this, then you would move into self-leadership. Then we break for 20 minutes and they have a conversation amongst their table. What would happen if you applied self-leadership in your organization? They fed it back, and basically they made the case for putting my ideas, my concepts, my methodologies into their organization. I get a standing ovation from a Finnish audience, which never happens. They felt interactive, the organizer was happy, and I delivered value.
Fantastic. Yeah, that is just an amazing way to really show the value, right? Definitely. Wow, thank you for that. What a great idea. That's really cool.
So I was just going to summarize it, because when I was in the health field, I didn't say, here's how you get healthy. My first successful keynote as a speaker was 13 ways to die early. Not here's how you get healthy, this is how you're going to die. And because you have to show people the cost of not using you. So your answer to the question, how do you demonstrate the value to the booker? This is what it's costing the client to not have my message.
Brilliant. Oh, I'm going to cut that bit off for sure. Definitely. What's the pain, and what is the pain that you're solving, for sure. One of the things that I feel as a speaker as well, we always talk about fees, and so demonstrating the value of it and putting a fee to that value. And how do you really move that needle from, being maybe a $5,000 keynote speaker to 10,000+ speakers? And how do you make that step between one and the other? Because there's quite a big step between the two, right?
I don't think there is.
Okay.
I don't think it's a very big step at all, because you don't have to move to make the step. It's inside. And you are worth as a speaker as much as somebody will pay you. And they're only going to pay you as much as you can look them in the eye and say, this is my fee. Now, if you can't look somebody in the eye and say, my fee is 10,000, or my fee is 20,000, or my fee is 50,000, if you can't look them in the eye and know into the every cell in your body that is, you're going to deliver that value and some. So if you haven't done the work on yourself, and this is self-leadership 101.
I was just going to say, this is pure self-leadership.
And this is why I don't think it's a big step. I think a lot of people don't get past it, right? So, if you're going to sell Mercedes, but you're driving a beat up Toyota or Datsun, you're going to struggle to sell Mercedes. If you're trying to sell expensive handbags and expensive jewelry, and you don't think it's worth having expensive handbags and jewelry, you're going to make a terrible salesperson. I did some work for Cartier, and the girls were beautiful and the boys were elegant and everybody was wearing jewelry. And I said, does Cartier supply you with this? They said, no, we buy it ourselves. We get a staff discount, but we are putting our money into buying the jewelry because we believe in it. And because when we wear it, we sell more of it and then we get more commission. So it made sense. Look, if you wouldn't pay $5,000 for a speaker, you can't charge it. If you wouldn't pay $10,000. Look, the thing that has made me pull my hair out as a leader of speakers associations is, we put on a conference and it costs for the venue and for the lunch and for the afternoon teas and for the drink afterwards. And people say, oh, it's too expensive. Right. And it's 130 euros. Right. And I'm like, and one of the persons, who said to me, oh, it's too expensive. I had helped them go from $1,000 speaker to a $5,000 speaker. So I had already in one conversation helped them get a revenue of 4,000 euros, and they would not invest 130, or they felt it was too expensive. So that limiting mindset of, oh, what's it worth? A lot of people need to look in the mirror. So unless you can look the client in the eye and say, well, that's actually, because what you've got to do, a friend of mine, Keith Abrahams, is $1 million speaker. He's looking at the client, not for the keynote speech, but the series of keynote speeches and the workshop that goes with the keynote speaking and the coaching that goes following the keynote speaking, etc. So, when I'm looking for a client, I'm looking always for a few clients who want to pay me 250 to 500,000 a year as a retainer. That's who I'm looking for. A few of those and everything. Right? So, if you're looking, oh, I'm going to go from 5 to 10 and it's a big step, then you've made it a big step. Right. The next time if you're a 5,000, if you're currently getting 5,000, next time somebody says how much, just look them in the eye and say 10. Yeah. Now, if they say no, we don't have the budget, then you can have a discussion, but they might say yes. But if you can't do it because you are not offering that amount of value, you haven't put in the work, then go do the work. Go read the books. Go write the book. Go do the research. Go do the rehearsal. Go and give 100 free speeches. Before I charged anybody, I did what I call 100 chicken dinners. And that is, I said, I'm going to do 100 free speeches. And I found every Rotary Club, every Lions Club that I could find, and I offered them a free speech. It was usually over lunch. And so I got a free chicken dinner, and if I was lucky, a bottle of wine, but usually a pen. And I did 100. I did my apprenticeship. So don't expect you can just go, oh, I'm going to be a speaker. That looks really cool. I'm going to walk out on stage and be paid $10,000. It doesn't work that way. You've got to earn the stripes, but you've got to believe it yourself. You have to have dropped the mic or had the lights go out on you or had the PowerPoint not work or, wake up sick that morning and still have to present. You have to do those things so that when you are charging those fees, none of that's ever going to faze you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, again, it's a continuous development, right? We mentioned that right at the beginning. The circle that we, whether it's PSA or VSA or whatever community you have, you have also, I believe you've got a mastermind group as well, where you're part of a mastermind and you do a lot of that coaching and mentoring, and that's really important as well, isn't it? It's about us really always wanting to develop ourselves, right? Again, self-leadership, I'm guessing that's part of it. Yeah.
Yes. You raise a very important point, Paul. Speaking is a very lonely thing. It's wonderful when you walk off stage and the queue of people want to buy your book or have you sign their books. I was in Iceland last month and I spoke to 1,000 HR leaders or HR people, and 95% of them were female, and it's Iceland. So they were the blonde, beautiful women with with skin because of the air and the water in Iceland. And 50 beautiful women come up to me and say, Andrew, you're amazing. That's awesome. I'm a happily married man, but I'm taking that to the bank. That made me feel, I don't deny that didn't make me feel good. Right? But sometimes you are, you're on a whole bunch of speakers, you do your thing, you come off stage and, the handlers whisk you away to a different hotel and then you're on the plane or a train leaving. And I remember having the experience of doing a great keynote speech, but not closing the loop, not having people come up and say it was great, and being at an airport. And I wanted to go up to complete strangers and go, I want to tell you what I just did, because I just needed that feedback, right? Now, eventually you get beyond that and you don't need it as much, but you do need to have a trusted friend or group of friends that you can say, hey, I nailed it. I absolutely nailed it. Or, hey, I screwed up and I need to talk to my friends.
Yeah.
And I have that. I'm part of a mastermind, but quite famously, if anybody's followed me on LinkedIn, or I have a bestie. My bestie is another keynote speaker. I met him through Asia Professional Speakers Singapore, where I was president, and then he subsequently became president. That's Frederick Hurren, the creativity explorer. He lives on an island in Stockholm. I'm in Portugal. We play online chess almost every day. Just recently I was in Oslo and he was in Mexico City, and we're playing chess online. That is an example of global speaking. But he said to me, I wasn't happy with this speech because it was one of those silent speeches where everybody had headphones on. And we talked through it. It turned out, the audience loved him, but he wasn't getting that feedback from the speech. But it's great in the moment to have somebody. And I said, you probably did great. It's a different environment. It's a different context. We all had that when we transitioned into virtual speeches. I did a keynote speech for one of the professional service organizations, and I was huge. And then they just went, oh, thank you very much. And nothing, and I'm like, well, was it good? Was it not good? I thought it was good. And, so having somebody that you can get on a Zoom call or pick up the phone and go, I think I bombed, or I think I did amazing. And they're not going to think you're an egomaniac if you say, nailed it.
No, absolutely. No, it's really important. And that's the power of moving forward as well together, supporting each other, right, in those moments, the good ones and the less good ones. Just to finish off, Andrew, and thank you very much. You've talked about the 4 E's earlier. And what would you say, what would be the big 3 takeaways that you would say for a speaker on their journey to really kind of want to move the needle? And, if they're really serious about this as a business, again, we come back as a business, what would be the things that you think that they should really kind of totally nail?
Well, there's a book called Ikakagi about the Japanese concept, and you've seen it. It's a Venn diagram of, what do you love to do, right? What are you really good at, right? What will people pay you for, and what does the world need? And there are 4 overlapping circles, and of course, right in the middle of that is the sweet spot. So I'm living the dream because I love international travel. I love going to new countries. I love sharing my message. I have worked very hard to get good at that. Now, initially, people weren't particularly interested in self-leadership, but it is this idea of developing ownership, autonomy, responsibility, accountability, particularly in an AI world, is now it's a hot topic. So, and fourthly, what does the world need? Well, the world needs people to step up, take ownership. Nobody's going to come on a white horse and rescue you, right? Stop being a victim and start taking ownership. Is life fair? Absolutely not. There is inequality everywhere. Obviously I'm a white privileged male and I'm very aware of that. But I speak to women leadership. I speak for at-risk and disadvantaged teenagers. Everybody can improve their lives by becoming the driver, not the passenger of their life. And if you're going to be a speaker, you are going to have this huge responsibility and huge honor to influence other people's lives. So be very clear what that message is, and not just, oh, I think that this is important, but why is this important for the audience and how do they move it? What's the delta? They're going to move from point A to point B. As a result of hearing me speak, this audience is going to be able to do A, B, and C. And there are so many speakers who you say, I love this. This topic is important. Mindset is important. Absolutely. Don't deny it. Mindset's important. But what's your take on mindset? How are you going to help people shift their mindset, and in what context? And they can't answer that question. So you've got some work to do if you're not crystal clear on the answers to those questions.
Oh my gosh, Andrew, I've got chill in my arms just listening to you right now. It's really powerful, not just in what you're saying, but how deep and how meaningful it is, I think, in every part of our lives, not just maybe as a speakers, but anybody. That's what you do, right? It's what you do best. So thank you so much for being here. I believe you've got a new book that you've just launched not so long ago, right? People can buy it somewhere.
Of course. Well, all of my books are available through, your online bookstore, but just go to selfleadership.com, my website, and you'll look through there and you'll find links to my self-leadership book. You'll find links to the new Leadership Playbook, which is which is the book that came out in 2022. So it's been a year now. So, but the new Leadership Playbook, you can download a free chapter. You can have what we say, a lick of the ice cream, and see if you like the taste of how I write and what I speak about.
Yes, well, I've had the pleasure to read quite a bit of that book on the plane. So go ahead and book it. I'll put the link in the comments below, so you can just click on it and go and find the copy of it. And Keith, Andrew, you talked about Keith earlier. So there's loads of other videos. I've interviewed Keith a couple of weeks ago, so go back and watch some of those videos as well. If you want to learn some more, you can subscribe and read and share and ask some questions, because if you have questions, this is the right moment to ask them. Andrew, what's the best social media platform where people can find you?
I'm most active on LinkedIn, so
Right.
very easy. Andrew Bryant, and it's the bald guy in the picture. That's me. And so yeah, no, I respond to. I'm on LinkedIn every day because it's the platform where my market is. You will not find me on TikTok. You will. Self-leadership on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. But I'm really not particularly active on those.
Right.
LinkedIn is where
You'll find you. Well, thank you very much for today. Thank you, everybody. And we'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.
Bye for now.